We preview the Baltimore Ravens Week 14 divisional showdown with the Pittsburgh Steelers coming up next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we are back. Another episode of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Ostrecker of Ravens Wire. We are here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for tuning in, making us your first listen every day. Free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube. And here with us, our Purple Friday guest, former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail, to help us dive into this Week 14 matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Also talk a bit about what happened in Week 13 against the Broncos. And Q, again, the Ravens, another sluggish offensive performance in Week 13. They'll hope to get back on track in this big divisional matchup in Pittsburgh.
Huge game, I think, for this Ravens ball club. More than likely going to be playing without Lamar Jackson, dealing with a knee injury. This is a game in which if you can come out of it with a victory, it continues to give you a little bit of a cushion against a red-hot Cincinnati Bengals team in your division and the push to make the playoffs.
And now you have an 8-4 football team still tied atop their division with Cincinnati. But this is the stretch right here where 4 of their last 5 matchups are divisional games. Now, my favorite stat of the year so far, or at least one of them, is Baltimore's 2-0 in their division, much better than their 1-5 mark from last year. They've already toppled that, but this is the first of 2 matchups against Pittsburgh. And on the offensive side of the ball, Q, you're right. It's looking more and more like Tyler Huntley. You have a guy who does have the experience, obviously stepped in for Lamar Jackson last year when Jackson couldn't play. The Chicago game when he had that illness comes to mind, and obviously when he had to miss the remainder of that 2021 season. And now he has the experience against the Denver team who he played in Week 13. So it's not like he's coming in and has never started a game before. Now he has the week to prep. But this Pittsburgh defense, it is no joke. What are you looking for from Huntley in this one, especially after a game where he completes 27 passes, but those go for under 200 yards?
Yeah, I think if we look at the way he plays, there's some similarities, of course, to Lamar, and I think he has a lot of poise. Since watching him in the opening of the Chicago Bears game last year, where he got his start, and it was last minute, but it showed that he was, all right, cool. You put me in this situation, I got to make plays. He got better as the game went on. He missed some early throws. He missed some timing routes that he could have had. But what I saw was a guy who kind of was like, all right, cool. I'm not going to allow this to define me. And he got better as the game went on. I think that the team really fully believes in him. Listening to some of the comments from some of the players, the guys are like, yo, we feel we can win with Snoop as the starting quarterback. So all hands are on deck. Everybody got to play their best to give him the best chance to win. And it's kind of interesting because with Lamar can kind of take over a game, if you will, and make up for some of the deficiencies of his team, whether it be offensive line and blocking, or whether it be a pass pro or lack thereof by his running back, or, if he feels he needs to get a critical first down, he's, as opposed to handing the ball off to his guy, he's going to take it and run it and make guys miss and get it. All those things, making a critical throw in a tight window. I just think that Lamar Jackson is in a scenario where he has to do more for this team to get a victory against the Steelers. I think they're going to have to find a way to help out Huntley and let Snoop be Snoop, and when it comes down to that fourth quarter, put him in position to finish off the game.
Yeah, and I know there are a couple things coming out of that Denver game people point to, myself included, and including the fact that Baltimore was 3 of 13 on third down. They also, Q, haven't scored a first, second, or third quarter touchdown in their last 3 games. It's been all fourth quarter scoring. They have faltered in the red zone in some of those opportunities. And I always say, if you want field goals, Justin Tucker is your guy. Like, that's the guy you want kicking them, but you want to be able to score touchdowns instead of trading them in for field goals in the red zone. And I mean, this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, Q, is a team that actually has struggled defending the pass this year. They're 27th in net yards per attempt, but their rush defense is a top 10 unit. They're sixth in the league with 4.1 yards per attempt given up. So I think an important part of this game is going to be able to be if Baltimore can establish their ground game. We'll see what J.K. Dobbins, I think Gus Edwards, Kenyon Drake, Justice Hill, those guys, if they can establish something on the ground early, in my opinion, I think that's a great start for a team that over the last 3 games has struggled to start fast.
Yeah, I mean, running the ball is good. I think what happens, you have to run the ball well on early downs and get it into third and manageable. Those third and longs are killers. And, this game is predicated on running the ball, but then also it's the deception runs that really matter for this Ravens offense. Their deception runs haven't really been that deceptive at all. Like teams, I think, are figuring out just how to do this Greg Roman run offense and be, like I said, understanding of the keys, which then if you look at the way in which Lamar is reading the defense, he's really making up for a lot of the errors that come about when you see the defense has an advantage. He makes up for it with his talent and his football IQ. He recognizes some of the things that are going on, some of the adjustments that are being made, and he counteracts them. So I think overall, the bigger picture is, you gotta be in a position early downs to be successful running the ball. And if it is mixing up the run and the pass, so be it. But when you run the ball, you got to be effective. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and I think to your point, a second and short is so much different than a second and long and what you can do if it's a second and 3 compared to a second and 9. So if you can run effectively on first down, even on second down as well, and put your offense into a third and short situation more often than not, I agree with you. I think that's a really big factor. But speaking of the pass offense, who are some pass catchers you want to see step up in this one based off to maybe your expectations for?
So from a pass catcher standpoint, the ability to be consistent is what keeps you in the league. And I think D-Rob, he has had some really good plays, no question about it. He has looked the part, no question about it. But the blaring drops in critical moments, that's where I think you gotta just look at yourself in the mirror and be like, look, I gotta make plays. And I think, it's important. I love the fact that didn't pick up the first down, let's be clear, but it was a third and long, and Tyler literally slung it out there on a rope, boom, on a deep comeback route to Duvernay. And I was like, oh, wow, that's something I haven't seen in a minute, that deep comeback route out to the individual receiver. And with that said, I think for Tyler Huntley, it's a great opportunity to get him involved more. And hey, I know they love the jet sweep. I think teams are going to be, playing for that. I could see where they're going to do some fake jet sweep action, see if they could pull a defender away from the run and have run action the other way. I could totally see that. But I think Josh Oliver has to continue to progress as well. Those are little things that when it comes down to it, if you do it right, those 3 guys, Josh Oliver, clearly D-Rob, Demarcus Robinson, and Devin Duvernay. If Duve can get an opportunity to get into a groove early, I think it'll work out well for him.
Right, and there's a lot to look at with the Steelers defense. You know about Minkah Fitzpatrick. You know about TJ Watt. Alex Highsmith is their sack leader this year with 10 of them. So they have a lot of horses on that defense, but so do the Ravens. And in our second segment, we'll dive into that Ravens defense going up against rookie Kenny Pickett in that Steelers offense. So be sure to stay tuned. Still a ton to dive into on the show. But first, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp Therapy Online. And sometimes I do wish that life came with a user manual, but BetterHelp Online Therapy is basically the next best thing. Unfortunately, life doesn't come with that user manual. So when it's not working for you, it's normal to feel stuck. Therapists are trained to help you figure out the cause of challenging emotions and learn productive coping skills, which makes therapy the closest thing to a guided tour of the complex engine called you. BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists and convenient, secure, and accessible anywhere, 100% online. And there are so many benefits of therapy, such as learning those coping skills, self-empowerment, dealing with trauma, and more. And there's so many others who have benefited from therapy, and everyone deserves to feel their best. BetterHelp makes it easier to get started. As the world's largest therapy service, they've matched millions of people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. You have all the benefits of in-person therapy, plus it's more convenient, more accessible, and more affordable. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist, and if things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist at any time. It couldn't be simpler. There are no waiting rooms, no traffic, no one that's searching for the right therapist. Get unstuck with BetterHelp. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. We're back. Our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with Qadry Ismail. And Q, for the Ravens defense, this has been a unit that has almost been like dragging the offense across the finish line over these last couple of games. Now, the fourth quarter against Jacksonville, you want to forget about that one, 18 points on their final 3 drives, but a pretty dominant performance against what, look, to be fair, it's not a great Denver offense they have over there, but they still got the job done. But now going up against a rookie quarterback, the Ravens have historically had success against some of these first, second, third year guys. Not every time, but how do you rattle Kenny Pickett, Q, in this situation?
Well, first, I just want to say, like, Jacksonville, they had a solid defense too, but make no question about it, shouldn't have been the close scoring game. They should have definitely pulled off the victory. You just got to make some plays for your quarterback. Now, with all that said, yes, the Kenny Pickett issue is all about pressure. He's shown some poise in pressure situations, but you kind of like want him to kind of get rid of the football quickly and or make him see ghosts and throw the ball to a defender. So, in other words, you're going to see pressure one way, and now you're trying to get rid of the ball, but you're throwing it into coverage. And I think that that's the game plan for most young quarterbacks. But I think if you can do that to Kenny Pickett, you give yourself a chance to play. Make no mistake about it. He has a lot of poise for a young man, and definitely deserving of the first pick for Pittsburgh as far as selecting a quarterback in the first round. Um, his mindset should be one where, hey, I know they're going to be bringing it. Let me go ahead and hand off the ball. And if they can make him one-dimensional by shutting down a run, it puts the ball right back into his hands. And that's where you're going to have to go ahead, like I said, be ready to force some turnovers.
Yeah, and I think for Baltimore, if they can shut down the Steelers' run game early, the Ravens' run defense has been phenomenal this season. So if you force the ball into Pickett's hands and send pressure, I think that's what's going to be your best bet. So, Q, are you sending blitzes on a majority of these plays here? Are you trusting your guys and maybe rush 4 or even rush 5 situations to get to them?
I think you could change it up. I don't think, we're looking at a Wink Martindale type of blitz scenario when it comes to the former defensive coordinator here. You got the same defense, but I think the Mike McDonald way is selective blitzing, in certain scenarios and certain situations. Yeah, but it'll surprise me if he, feels like he needs to bring it. I think JPP, I think Houston, I think Dafe finally got off the schneid with his sack. I think Tyus Bowser. These guys are really putting a lot of pressure up front, and it's cool that you can, apply pressure without always having to bring an extra defender. But at the same time, if they do apply pressure, that means you got to hold up on the back end of things. The receivers, they all have their unique capabilities and do things differently, but this isn't a game where you're just going to take it for granted and be like, these receivers can't play. They'll make some big plays if you let them.
Yeah, and there's a lot to look forward to when you're talking about the Ravens getting pressure on Kenny Pickett. But Odafe Oweh, I think that's a big one because he gets the sack in week 13 against Denver. How big is it for him to continue that momentum, to continue to build up confidence after what has been a pretty trying second season?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it. It just takes one. You get that first one out of the picture, and now all of a sudden you're like, all right, cool, here we go. And I think defensively, they're all playing well. So, it helps when you have other guys playing well because it gets the attention off of you. Remember, he's on that side where it's also tight end based, and he's trying to, play both, the run and pass, and the way in which he's doing it. It's not just free flow off you go. So I think he, he's in a groove. Keep him in a groove. I think they're looking at his snap count and adjusting it because of the healthy body. So that means fresh legs. Fresh legs means that you can go ahead and use your athleticism to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, and let's move to the back end now because we've seen some solid play there. Marlon Humphrey has had a great year, but I know everybody is waiting for the return of Marcus Williams and what he can bring on the back end. Now, we didn't see a ton of Marcus Williams, but he was an impact maker on the first couple games of the year for him. 3 interceptions through 2 games was kind of like that back end presence they've been looking for. And credit to Geno Stone for what he's been able to do filling in. For Marcus Williams, I think that he's held it down over there. But if Williams is able to come back in this game, what kind of a difference does he make?
I think he's an impact player. We saw it, as you just alluded to, in the very beginning of the year with his turnovers. And he just has a good range. You play that too high safety, which is a lot to ask on the safety, but that's what a lot of teams like to do, to apply pressure and play that too high safety against, pass favorable teams that realize the pass is where it's at. If you got a guy like a Marcus Williams, then you're putting yourself in position. You're putting yourself in giving yourself a chance to create turnovers. It gives an offense a short field. It gives an offense a chance to put points on the board and separate. So, I think having him back would be a significant upgrade.
Yeah, I do too. And for the Steelers, they currently have the 3rd worst passing offense in the league right now. They are 30th in net yards per attempt with 5.3. And then rushing wise, they're 21st. So they have not really even mid-tier groups there, both bottom of the league in rushing and in passing. So we'll see what they end up doing. But I think, Key, when you're looking at impact players in that back end, I think we saw a difference with Kyle Hamilton out there for them in week 13 against Denver after he did miss the week 12 game against Jacksonville. Did you notice that impact?
Say that one more time.
For Kyle Hamilton, did you notice an impact from him and what he can do
Kyle
against
Hamilton,
Pittsburgh?
His ability, I think, to one, feel good about his knee, but then his ability just to get back into the groove. I mean, he was out there on special teams as well. That's saying a lot. And he was in a group before the knee. So I think it's vitally important because of the fact that Pittsburgh likes to run those multiple receiver sets, that you have a guy that has good range, that a guy that can, come up and support the run. Najee Harris is 21st in the league, all you want. I know those last couple of games, he's been kind of getting his groove. So this isn't where you can just sit back and be like, they're not that good of a team. This is a rival game. You got a lot of young faces, so it'll be kind of curiosity as far as how everybody approaches it. But I think there's enough, young veterans, if that is a word, to at least express how this game is going to go. And just the slobber knocker type of atmosphere that it presents for both sides of the ball. So Kyle Hamilton, having him back, and that's where it is. If you have an opportunity to have both Marcus and Kyle back there, bonus.
And we've seen them together, but it was when Hamilton, obviously still early in his rookie season, figuring some stuff out. Now we have more of a seasoned rookie, plus the veteran leadership and experience of Marcus Williams. Those two together, I know a lot of people are looking at them as the future of the safety position in Baltimore for a very long time, and I think definitely they can make an impact in this one. Hamilton's one of the guys I'm looking out for in this Week 14 matchup. But coming up, we're going to be diving into our predictions. We'll talk a bit about Q's experience in those Ravens and Steelers rivalries throughout his playing days, so be sure to stay tuned. Still have a ton of content left here on Locked On Ravens. But first, this episode is sponsored by PrizePicks, and we're gearing up Week 14 of fantasy. Fantasy playoffs for most begin next week, so that's exciting. But if you want a different twist on fantasy, be sure to try out PrizePicks. And PrizePicks is super easy to use. They have a ton of current formats and current entries that you can use as well. And how it works is you pick 2 to 5 players, and if they will go score more or less in their PrizePicks projection, you can go up to 10 times the money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. So Zubers with projections available. PrizePicks offers projection on any sport that you watch, including the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, college basketball, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. Is that easy? They have safe and fast withdrawals, and they're currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app and go to PrizePicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That means if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. You deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100. We're back rounding out Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with Qadry Ismail. And Kiwa, I do want to get your opinion on the Denver game in Week 13, 10-9 win for Baltimore. But you mentioned it. The Denver defense is a defense that is very good. The Denver offense, not so much, but it was a physical game all around. And the Ravens had to fight for that win. Tyler Huntley, that 16-play, 91-yard drive, the orchestrated at the end there. What were your takeaways from it in a game that I know a lot of people were kind of hoping would be more of a blowout for the Ravens?
Yeah, Twitter is interesting because you have a scenario where you want to push out what you're seeing and kind of dialogue with the fan base or whatever. And I simply put, based upon the fact that Lamar only played 10 plays, I guess, and in those 10 he unfortunately got a sack, hurt his knee, and he kind of was like, all right, I'm done. In comes Tyler Huntley, and Tyler, I was like, wow, okay, he threw a deep comeback route, boom, completed it, went off the field, didn't get the first down, but then they came back and he marched them down the field, and they got 3 points out of it. I simply say, man, Tyler's in command of the offense. Boy, that blew up. And it blew up in a way where people were like, oh my God, all this, all that. And then I was like, well, last I checked, they got the number one red zone defense. They, are amazing against the rush. Their pass defense is top notch. So across the board, they can ball. And for a backup quarterback to not flinch and only get better, and you said it, what, a 16-play, 91-yard drive. You had zero margin for error. And there were 2 plays that kind of stood out. One was when he threw it to Mark Andrews. It was a backside throw. Technically, it was a front side, but it was a backside throw in that Patrick Surtain, he got pass interference. And that was a vet move by Mark Andrews. Vet move. It was amazing because now you're drawing that pass interference and boom, drive is alive, first down, all the things. But then when Tyler scrambles out, they're in the red zone, and the defender was sticking on to, what was it, Kenyon Drake, I believe, who was the running back. And he literally pumps it, knowing that, he's not there. And then he just kind of separates from the defender because the defender now is being drawn up, and boom, he throws it in there, throws it in the spot. I thought that was like the play of the game. And, he's like, man, I wish he would have scored, whatever. But both plays just to me was like, yo, when you needed to have everyone do their job and do their part, they did. And then clearly the O-line gets some love too, because when they needed to get it into the end zone, Tyler, it was just a quarterback gut. And boom, he gets it up in there. So you kudos to the O-line. I think bottom line, it comes down to it, is that he showed an incredible amount of poise and just played a heck of a game.
Yeah, that play, it was my favorite of the game too. I've been talking about it all week, is that Huntley to Drake connection. But you're right, this is a game that's a confidence builder. I know for a lot of people it wasn't because of Denver's offense, and they only scored 10 points, and I was saying, well, that's against the Denver defense. The Ravens defense did their job against the Denver offense, but I do know that you do want to score more points. And plus, this isn't just a 1 week thing with the offense where it struggled against Jacksonville to an extent. I know they did put up some points in that fourth quarter. The Carolina game was a struggle for him for the most part. So that consistency is going to be big against Pittsburgh in week 14. But it always seems like with these Ravens Steelers matchups, you throw the records out the door, throw everything that's happened out the door. It's just Ravens versus Steelers like it's week 1 and nothing else matters. And I know you had some experience in those Ravens and Steelers games during your playing days, especially. And this was a little special because it's at Heinz Field and that atmosphere there. Can you talk a little bit about just what that was like in the atmosphere at Heinz Field playing for the Ravens?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting where we had 3 Rivers, we closed it out and beat them. I had a career game that game. But when you look at Heinz Field, the interesting thing about that place, and now they've upgraded as well, it's the sound that reverberates throughout. And I also had the privilege of doing many a broadcast on the Ravens radio network, and I promise you, it is like no other, because you truly have two blue collar cities. You have a fan base that has been around, 1967 or something, or 37 or whatever, 27. I forget the hats that they wear to say when they were first instituted. But yeah, you got a Ravens team that's relatively brand new, but has had success. And I think now that the AFC Central is now the AFC North, and these two story franchises, I mean, man, again, you look at what they bring, the brand of football, when it was Ray Lewis, Roman, and then you had on the other side of the field guys like Troy Polamalu. I mean, it brought some amazing football. It brought just the best, I think, out of everyone. And I think both coaches, they're just really fine coaches. I like their style. I like how they do things. But yeah, this is one of those games where you just kind of like, ooh, this is some good football. This is true football.
And now the rookie class gets their first taste of Ravens Steelers, and now they get it. It's actually it's not Heinz Field anymore. The Steelers changed the name of their stadium, and so we're gonna have to get used to that. So unfortunately, no more Heinz Field in the books, but a new stadium name at that. But I know, Q, for this prediction segment here, we're gonna get into predictions now. It's big for the Ravens to get this win, especially with the way the division is looking right now. Obviously, Pittsburgh's not really in the division race right now. They're tied with Cleveland for third at 5-7. But I think we are really going to see a tight race to the finish in this AFC North. And a lot of that comes down to what's the divisional tiebreakers? What are the conference tiebreakers? So for the Ravens to go 3-0 in their division to start, still with games against each one of their divisional opponents left, would be huge. And plus, to get a win on the road in Pittsburgh, I think that's another huge, huge thing that can go a long way for later in the season, confidence-wise. So how do you feel this one goes?
Yeah, I just think this is a game where it's every game is a must-win game, but this game means more because it's a division opponent. I think they count it like a game and a half, if you will, when it comes to your other division opponent that has been playing really, really well. And I'm like, yo, you gotta call it what it is. Like, Cincinnati is balling, so you want to you know, stay ahead of Cincinnati until it's the last game of the year when y'all gonna duke it out. So this is a pivotal game, and I think it's a it. It's not that the Ravens haven't had confidence, but I think this gives. I just think this is a confidence building game. It's weird to say, but this is a confidence building game that they're going to need.
And they should be able, I think they win it. They should be able to get back. Well, not on track. They did that already. But I'm going to say offensively, they get back on track in this one. And I think a big part of that will be able to be if Tyler Huntley can throw the football effectively. Pittsburgh's run defense, very good. So I think if you can, as you talked about earlier, Q, get into those second and shorts, third and shorts by running the ball effectively on first and second down, then the Ravens have a lot more room and a lot more things they can do on third down, as opposed to maybe being pigeonholed into one or two things on a 3rd and 10 or a 3rd and 9 or a 3rd and 11. So I'm going to say the Ravens, they will eclipse 20 points. They're going to go, I'll go 24-17 Ravens. Do you have a final score?
I had 23-17 was my prediction, so we're in the same ballpark.
All right, we're on the same wavelength, 24-17, 23-17. And really, I do think that this division might come down to week 18 against Cincinnati. Do you feel that way?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's what it is, and I think that's why this game is so pivotal. So it can't come down to the final week of the season. I think they'll put themselves in a good position to wrap up the playoff berth, and it's just a matter of seeding as far as who goes where when it comes to that week 18.
Yeah, I think both teams are playoff bound, but you want to have the division, you want to have the home playoff game, of course, and have that momentum, especially against a team in Pittsburgh who's not going to go down without a fight. No team will. We've seen that. We were talking about how easy the Ravens' schedule was coming out of the bye, and they have had 3 grinded out grinded out games and they've gone 2-1 in them. So we'll see what they can do against Pittsburgh in week 14. But Q, that's all I have for you. Thanks so much for hopping on and talking Ravens with me as always. And when we get back next week again, hopefully this is a 9-4 football team and still undefeated in that division at 3-0.
I hope so. This is all right there in front of them. Like, let's just take care of business. Starts with the Steelers.
It does. Big Pittsburgh Steelers matchup in week 14 for the Ravens. That's all I have for you here today, though, on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. When we get back here on Monday, we'll be diving into everything that happened in the Ravens and Steelers matchup. So be sure to stay tuned for that, and I will see you back here on Monday.